Hello, this is Andrine, a Jewish American priestess, and I'm coming to you today on the eve of Tu B'Av, which is the full moon of the month of Av. And Av is a month that has the Tisha B'Av morning in it, as well as the transformation to the holiday of Tu B'Av, which is about love and coming together. So we're going to do a reading today with tarot cards and Hebrunes and these charms, and I'm going to allow you to discern which of these charms speaks to you today. And then I'll put the timestamps down below for you to go directly to your reading. So here are our three charms today. First, we have this charm of a depiction of the feminine divine. You can see that she's got the spiral that speaks to the unfolding eternal presence of divinity, as well as being breasted and dancing, because Tu B'Av is a time of dancing in the vineyards. In the center we have the Hamsa, and in the center of the Hamsa we have the eye. And this one rotates, and I love that about it. So that it can see in all directions. Some say it is the God's eye, and is the eye that wards off the evil eye. So that is our Hamsa bead. And then our third choice today is this beautiful tree that represents the Asherah, the feminine divine that dwells within the trees. And you're welcome to choose more than one if more than one speaks to you. But take a moment, take a breath, and try to determine which of these is speaking to you. If you have several questions about love or the love of the divine, you can choose more than one reading. And I will look forward to seeing you in your reading. Hello, those of you who chose this charm with the depiction of the feminine divine. I love this. This was a gift given to me by the Kohenet Hebrew Priestess Institute when I joined their Magala program, which is about circling. And since we are at the fullness of the moon, this is a wonderful reminder that all things cycle around and spiral. And so we're going to set her off to the side today, and the way I'm going to do this reading today is simple. We're going to take this deck of tarot cards, which is the Tarocchi del Palio di Siena, and we're going to choose one card today. Take a look at it, and then we'll do a reading with three Hebrunes. Shuffle, and we're going to choose a card. See what comes out today for you. Speaks to love. Our card today. All right, let's see what we have. All right, we have this. This is upside down. This is the six of wands. In Italian, that is bastone, or in the case of Siena in particular, it's the nervi. These are the ritual items that are used by the riders in the Palio horse race. They are called nervi because it is a word which means the nerve. Each of these is it's a whip that is used in the race, mostly for hitting the other jockeys, not so much for the horse. And it is actually literally made out of a calf's penis. So it's not just a phallic symbol. It is a phallus in and of itself. On this card we have the Six of Wands. And the Six of Wands is the card that speaks to victory. In the traditional Rider-Waite-Smith deck, it has a mounted rider with a laurel crown, and he is holding his wand aloft in celebration of victory. So when the Six of Wands appears in a reading, it speaks to good fortune, progress, and reward and self-confidence. Success really in terms of the hard work that you've done. As in you have won in battle, or you, when I think about with a laurel crown, you have achieved mastery in terms of like graduation. A laurel wreath, interestingly, is still awarded in this town when somebody achieves academic success. So you'll see this time of year people walking around with a crown of laurels on their head and sometimes a banner across their chest that says Doctore or Doctoressa, which I completely love. And so the Six of Wands is the card that speaks to that kind of victory, that you have worked very hard and you have achieved success either in battle or in academia or in some part of your life that you have been really, really struggling with, perhaps. You've used your wands in order to bring about success. And in the case of the Palio, you have ridden well. You've ridden well and you have won and achieved victory in the race. So that's the card that you've got coming here with this figure of the feminine divine, and on the subject of love, victory in love. It's a wonderful story. And in addition to that, we're going to pull out 3 Hebrunes today. And the way I do it is I do from top to bottom. I'm going to set this off to the side, to the right, in fact. I'll leave her here. You do top to bottom, and the top Hebrew is the one that represents our current situation. The center is what is our fear or challenge, and the lower is what is the outcome given the current circumstances. So let's start at the top. We have the Yud. In the center, we have the Ein Sof. And at the bottom, we have the Zayin. This is lovely. Okay. So at the top of our reading, we have the letter Yud. And the letter Yud, as you can see, is a very small letter. It's the smallest of all the Hebrew letters. And to that end, it speaks to being a seed, or that one point out of which everything is created. It is said that in order for the divine to make space, in order for creation to happen, they had to contract themselves down to one point. And the Yud represents that one point. It is the first letter of the divine name, the Yud He Vav He, which is unpronounceable, but contains within it the past, present, and future. So what we have, our current situation here, is a seed. Something has been planted. Something new is coming in, a seed. It looks a little bit like a sperm as well, which is highly appropriate for this holiday of Tu B'Av, where it is said that the women would dance in the vineyards to entice partners to come to them. So sperms, seeds, fruition, planting of something new. That is what our current situation is for you. And I love that with regards to victory as well. Something has been planted, some new thing is coming in. It sounds really exciting and nourishing and hopeful. There's some wonderful hope coming in. The Yud is the number 10 in Gematria. And the number 10 has this connotation of the oneness of divinity multiplied times 10. So something being an ultimate manifestation of oneness. And that could be about a relationship with the divine or with yourself or with another human being, that two have become one in this ultimate manifestation of the one. It is 10. And Yud is also the foundation of sexuality. So something coming in that is creative, something that is procreative, something that is planting that seed, as I said. So it does speak to creativity and artisanship and handiwork as well. Yud is the first letter of the word yad, which means hand. So something about artistry and artisanship and handiwork. And 10 being the number of fingers on two hands is also speaking to that idea of the hands, the yad, the yadim, the two hands being 10. And I think about it also as corresponding to the 10 Sephirot, which are the divine emanations coming down from divinity and how they manifest in us and in the world. So something really wonderful, again, being planted here in us in hopes of victory. It is the letter that corresponds to the month of Elul, which is not now, but it's coming up in 2 weeks. So the month of Elul, which is coming, so we've got the seed that is planting and foreshadowing something new coming in. And it corresponds to the tribe of Gad. Gad is one of the 12 sons of Yaakov, and it is said to be the tribe of luck. Gad is also the name of a Semitic deity of the ancient times that was the god of luck. There is some speculation that Zilpah, who is the mother of Gad, brought some of her traditions into the tribe. So her two sons, who are Asher and Gad, refer to other Semitic deities, the Asherah and Gad, the god of luck. So luckiness, newness, seed being planted, this idea of oneness multiplied times 10, the divine name, so much happening right now, so beautiful. And what we have in the center of our reading, which is that of concern or the challenge that we're facing right now, is the letter that is no letter. We have this blank Hebrew, which represents the Ein Sof. It is that cosmic blank slate that we know existed before time. It's the page on which that first Yud was written. It's the void and everything that is unknown. So it makes sense on some level that it's in the center here, which is what is our challenge and what is our fear? Because when a new seed is being planted, we don't know how it's going to turn out. We don't know whether we'll have victory. We don't know whether it will turn out good or bad. This unknown, the void, and the idea of this chaotic, the tohu vavohu. Tohu vavohu is like that which is void and unknown. In the Torah, it talks about before creation, that the divine hovered over the waters and everything was tohu vavohu, the unknown, the unformed and void. And when things are not formed, when we don't know how it's going to turn out, it can be quite frightening and challenging to sit through that. That tone is the chime that I have that randomly intones on my telephone to remind me that the divine is here. And of course, the divine is here, of course, in the midst of this. And inside this and this blankness itself is divinity. And that can be hard. It can be challenging to trust. It can be challenging to not know how things are going to turn out and still sit with that. To know a seed has been planted and just wait. Because a lot of growth is about waiting. A lot of victory is about just getting through our period of time till we can find out how it's going to turn out. Those seeds unfold slowly sometimes. And as I was speaking to earlier, the Ein Sof refers back to this idea of contraction, the tzimtzum, the making of space so that creation can happen. That contraction down into the one point. And you can see here on our little divine feminine figure that she's got this spiral, because it is about contraction. It's about making space for something beautiful and new in the world. And the Ein Sof speaks to that space. It speaks to that contraction coming down into that one point so that creation can happen. And I think that's beautiful. I think it's a wonderful concept, but it can be very, very challenging to be in the midst of. As we know, when humans get born, contractions happen. That's one of the challenging parts. And so when we have this picture of the divine feminine, or femininity in itself, that spiral that exists within where creation happens, but there's challenge and difficulty in it, because when it's time for the thing to be born, contraction happens in order for the birth to occur. So yeah, that can be really hard. It can be really challenging. It can be really frightening. And yet, when we get through it all, if things go well and according to plan, we have as our final letter the letter Zayin. And Zayin is the letter that is a sword or a scepter. You can see it looks a little bit like a scepter, a little bit like a sword. So in my mind, it speaks to sovereignty. And I think of it in terms of personal sovereignty. How can we reclaim our sovereignty? How can we claim our own power? The letter Zayin is about completion as well. It is the number 7 in Gematria. Because there are 7 days of creation in our tradition, this letter is the 7th day. So it speaks to Shabbat and the idea of rest. That creation happened for 6 days actively, and then on the 7th day the divine rested. And the divine rested not because the divine requires rest, but because resting is a holy act. And that is something we need to remember, that we get to rest, that we are endured to rest because it is holy to do so. So Zayin speaks to power. I think of it as being one of the most powerful letters because of that sword or scepter imagery. And because it is Shabbat, the 7th day of creation, it also speaks to the Shabbat bride, who we see as the Shekhinah. And the divine feminine here, again, brings us back to Shekhinah. This idea of the marriage of the masculine divine and the feminine divine. And in this Tu B'Av reading, that brings so much power here as well, that the masculine divine and the feminine divine are united on Shabbat. And all things that come through creation have to do with that union of the masculine within us and the feminine within us. If we can bring those parts of ourselves together, we'll come to success and victory. Because it's the number 7 also, it speaks to that idea of luck, and which brings us right back up to the Yud, which is the tribe of Gad. So we've got luck in here twice: prosperity, success, victory, maybe a little concern about what's not known. But if you are concerned about what's not known, bring yourself back up to knowing that the seed has been planted, and that whatever the divine wants for you to come forth will come forth. And it's looking very wonderful here. It's looking like there's power, there's luck, there's rest, and that consummation of the divine masculine and feminine coming together. And I love that for you. This is hugely powerful reading, and it's a very, very beautiful one for the holiday of Tu B'Av. And so I hope for you that you have the opportunity to go into nature, to find some place under the full moon and dance with your beloved, dance for the divine feminine within you, regardless of your own gender, but come together and embrace the unknown so that you can come through to your power, to your rest, and know that you are held within that unknowingness. And if you do that, we can find our victory here. So for those of you who chose this depiction of the feminine divine, this has been your reading. I hope you enjoyed it. I hope you have a beautiful, lovely Tu B'Av. Enjoy the fullness of the moon. Hello, group number 2. Those of you who chose the Hamsa charm with the eye in it. Bring it up so you can see it again. Again, I just love this charm. It's got the eye in it, the blue bead with the eye and the hand which is reaching out to assist and protect. And I love to I wear this as an earring, obviously, and I just love it because it is so beautiful and protective, and it really does, for me, speak to that beauty of the divine watching over us, like the hand of Shekhinah, who is both lifting us up and giving us assistance as we move through the world. This is a charm that I got from Israel, and I use it in amulets and a variety of charms as well. So this is your talisman today. I'll set it off to the side. And the way we're going to do this reading today is the holiday of Tu B'Av. We're going to pull out one tarot card from this deck, the Tarocchi del Palio di Siena. And that will be your main energy for the reading. And then we're going to pull out some Hebrunes as well. And we'll find out what's coming up for you for Tu B'Av, for this idea of the holiday of love. So let's shuffle for a second and see. Oh, it came right out. Okay, so this is your card. I don't know what it's going to be, but it jumped off, so I'm pretty sure it's for you. And what we have is, wow, the Ace of Cups. What a beautiful, beautiful card for this particular reading. So all aces are about new beginnings and how we start out, but the cups themselves is about emotions. It's all about water, liquid, and emotions. And in the traditional Ace of Cups, you can see that cup overflowing with joy, with love, with divine energy and emotion. So what a gorgeous start to your reading to have the Ace of Cups here for you today. I'm going to set that off to the right here. The Ace of Cups, again, new beginnings, emotion, love in particular. I'm going to set that Hamsa there. So on the one hand, you have the hand that is protecting you and lifting you up, and on the other hand, you have the cups, which are here to bring love and emotion into your life. So we're going to do 3 Hebrunes, and the way I do the 3 is I start from the top and I bring them to the bottom. At the top, we have our current situation. In the center, that which is a fear or a challenge, and at the bottom will be our outcome given the current circumstances. So at the top, we have the letter Vav. Very nice. Very nice. In the center, we have the letter Samech. Okay. And our outcome, given the current circumstances, Ayin. Nice. Okay. Okay, starting at the top with the letter Vav. I just love this. This is so wonderful. So the letter Vav is the letter that is literally the word and in Hebrew. So it's about connection. It's sometimes seen as a hook or a peg, that thing which connects two things together. We might connect a tent, tether it to the earth, or it might be a hook that connects 2 veils around the Holy of Holies. They're very small, but they're incredibly valuable. Sometimes they were made out of very precious metals. So the Vav is about that sense of connection. It's about planting yourself firmly in the earth and reaching up toward the heavens with connection toward divinity. And I see the Vav as looking like it's got a little bit of a Yud at the top, all the letters containing some Yuds within them. And I think of it as that seed that is the Yud itself having sprouted and grown. So it's about connecting and reaching up toward the sun, toward the sky. So it's a taproot of some sort. And it's all about connections, about unity with divinity, about unity with yourself, about standing up tall and joining heaven and earth. It's the 6th day of creation, so it's the number 6 in Gematria, so it's the last day of active creation. And so all the things that were created on the 6th day are represented right here. And it's this idea of near completion. Something is almost coming to an end, almost coming to fruition. Everything is almost finished, coming together to make the wholeness of creation. In fact, it is the last day of active creation before rest happens. So all things have been created. Everything is in place. And it looks like a wand. It looks like that magic wand that the magician uses to do the magic to create all the things. I do certain correspondences of the Hebrew letters to the tarot that are different than the traditional correspondences. But for me, the Vav is the lover's card, absolutely. It's the card that says these two people have come together under the guidance of divinity. So with the Ace of Cups and the Hand of the Divine here, this is so beautiful for the Tu B'Av holiday, that you have connection. There's something that's coming together, something beautiful that is coming together in love with that heart, with the emotions, and is watched over by the divine here with the eye. Just gorgeous. And the second letter in our reading is the letter Samech. And the letter Samech is a circle, which, it looks like the full moon up above in the sky right now. It's about being surrounded with love. It's about being surrounded with support. It's the letter that begins the word sovev, which means to surround. It's about being surrounded like with a big hug. But interestingly, Samech also in the ancient Hebrew, in the Proto-Hebrew, looked like a thorn. And it speaks to that idea of having thorns. So you can see in the upper left corner, there's a little tiny vestigial thorn there. It's about boundaries. So in the ancient times, people would plant hedges around their estates that were thorny to protect them from predators and to protect them from their animals escaping. And so to that end, it speaks to boundaries. It speaks to having a good set of boundaries, like a rose that has a thorn on it, that has thorns on it to protect it. It's beautiful and it's lovely, but it wants to protect itself from anyone just coming along and grabbing it. And I think that's what it's talking about here in the center of your reading, is that the challenge in this relationship that you have going on, this challenge in the Vav, in this beginning of emotions, is that boundaries need to be set. That if one does not set appropriate boundaries, things will not work well. That boundaries are, the old saying, good fences make good neighbors. It's important to establish boundaries, especially early in a relationship, right at the beginning, so that it's clear what the expectations are, what you need in a relationship, what is appropriate and what is inappropriate. And so setting up those boundaries is hugely important right at the beginning in particular. Samech is the foundation of agitation, and there may be some irritability that's going on in this new relationship as well. That perhaps at the beginning of a relationship, when something you find is slightly irritating, that there's a little bit of a thorniness that's going on, especially in a new relationship, it's important to pay attention to that. That's a red flag. In a new relationship in particular, people tend to be on their best behavior. So if something is irritating or agitating, or even if it's like, oh, that's so cute the way they do that thing that annoys me, be aware that over time those things will grow and they will become more irritating, in my experience, and more agitating. So if you see something that is alarming in a new relationship, be aware that that is somebody on their best behavior, and that those things can become more irritating or more dangerous possibly with time. So set boundaries now. Set boundaries now. If somebody does something you don't like, especially early in a relationship, let them know that's not working for me. If they do something that you do like, let them know that is wonderful and I really, really enjoy that kind of behavior and I want it to continue. Setting those boundaries is really, really essential, especially, again, early in a relationship. So what I see Samech saying here is that there's some concern, possibly about agitation, irritation that's happening, and boundaries are necessary to be established right away in order for this relationship to be successful. And in the final position in our reading, we have the letter Ayin. And Ayin is said to be an eye, If you look at it this way, it looks a little bit like an eye with some makeup on it. If you look at it this way, you can see it looks like two eyes, those two yuds at the top, reaching back on the optic nerve toward the brain. So that's one of the ways to remember what ayin means. Ayin is an eye. It is one of the silent letters in Hebrew, along with the aleph. And to that end, I think of it in terms of vision is not loud. It's what we observe. It's what we see. And in order to give meaning or voice to it, we need to speak out loud what it is we are seeing in our relationship. It is the number 70 in Gematria, and to that end it speaks to a ultimate completion of a thing. So the number 7 represents the 7 days of creation, and 10 times 7 represents that ultimate manifestation of completion. But completion in a good way, not like something, it can be something's coming to an end, but I think of it as something coming to fruition, like something is blossoming and blooming here. It's about being watched over by the divine, and I love that with regards to the eye here in the Hamsa. We have this knowledge that we are being guarded over, that we are being watched over by the divine. And to that end, we are also being able to see clearly our way forward, knowing what to do. It's about oversight, like not oversight like we're seeing something, but divine oversight as in we're being overseen by a great supervisor who is divinity. And Ayin is the foundation of laughter. In the Sefer Yetzirah, each of the letters has a foundation associated with it, and Ayin is about laughter, at least in the version that I read, which was by Rabbi Jill Hammer, the Rav Kohenet of the Kohenet Hebrew Priestess Institute. She's written a book called Return to the Place that goes through the Sefer Yetzirah line by line, and it was what inspired me to make the Hebrunes in the first place. And I like that Ayin goes with laughter, because when we can see things clearly, we can laugh at the situation, possibly at ourselves. And sometimes it's difficult to see things, and yet when we do see them, we can find the humor in it. When we see how things are going to turn out in the end with that ultimate completion idea, that we'll have this ability to laugh at ourselves and laugh at the situation. And I like that, because we're laughing when we're laughing with someone, when we have a lover, when we have emotional outlets, we're able to feel all things well. And that includes sorrow, and it includes difficulty, but laughter and crying have very similar sensations in the body. So when we get through this situation, when we can set appropriate boundaries, and when we recognize the agitations in ourselves and in others, we can come to a place of vision and laughter in the end. Ayin corresponds to the tribe of Dan, which means judgment. So it has something to do with discerning, being able to see clearly and judging appropriately. Some people see it as the final judgment because of the Ayin being the 70. But I think in this situation, in this reading with your Hamsa, with the eye in it, the eye of the divine watching over, the hand of the Shekhinah sheltering, and being able to see clearly the way forward. We're talking about being able to discern. Being able to discern, have good boundaries, and connect with divinity in order to connect with others. That we have this new beginning, that we have this new love, this new emotional state coming in. And through it all, if we can set good boundaries, if we can note the agitation and speak to what we need in order to find comfort in that, then we'll come through being able to see our way in to the final completion of it, into the blossoming of it, like that rose I was speaking to with the thorns. Then we'll have the ability to discern appropriately what the next step is in the relationship, what's the next stage here. So for those of you who chose the Hamsa with the eye to protect us, the Kinahora to protect us from the evil eye, this has been your reading. I hope that you enjoyed it. I hope you have a beautiful Tu B'Av that you can go out under the moonlight and dance, and you can enjoy yourself and celebrate. Find laughter and joy in your vineyard. Hello, those of you who chose the Asherah, which is the tree. I think of it as like a tree of life. And we have that, we sing that in Torah services, the Eitz Hayim Hi Lama Kazikim Ba. She is a tree of life for those who hold fast to her. And the Asherah is this ancient manifestation of the divine feminine that exists within the trees and is celebrated within the trees. And I love that here. And I chose the white background on her. This is a kind of charm that I can open up and change the inside color of it. And I chose the white today because of the full moon, of Tu B'Av that is coming upon us right now. And I like that she's standing under the full moon here today. The Levana, the whiteness of the moon. This was given to me by my elder daughter Petra, and I just love it. It's one of my favorite pieces of jewelry, and I'm so glad that my jewelry stand tipped over today to give me the notice that these are the appropriate symbols for me to choose for the reading. So we're going to take our Asherah and we're going to set her off to the side here. And we are reading about Tu B'Av, which is the Jewish holiday of love. And we're going to start by choosing a tarot card from I Tarocchi del Palio di Siena. And we're going to shuffle and pick one card that will be our general energy. And then we'll do some Hebrunes as well to read about what is it that love is bringing to you today. What is it you need to know? And there's our card. Okay, let's see. We have Nikio. Wonderful. Nikio is the shell. In Siena, the Contrada each have an animal associated with them. Nikio is a noble Contrada, which is to say it has a crown on it. It was designated by one of the royals. And it is a seashell. And you can see that it has coral on either side of it. And you'll also notice that it has these loops. Certain Contrade have the infinity symbol on them. This one has it 3 times. It looks like several pearls as well. Nikio's colors are dark blue, gold, and a bright red like the coral. And Nikio is the Contrada that has been assigned in this deck to the Hermit. And I think that's appropriate. It feels appropriate. Is the number 9, which is the Hermit card in traditional tarot. The number 9, the Hermit, because it's a shell, because it's inside of a shell. And Nikio, the way I see it, has corresponding to the Hermit is, it is someone who has a secret knowledge within it. It has these pearls within it, and that it can open itself up. It goes inside, closes itself up, uses that bit of sand to create this beautiful pearl, and then is opened up to share that with the world. So Nikio is our Hermit card. And we have down in the right corner, the other interesting thing about these cards, which it's taking me a while to figure out, is we've got these letters in the corners, and they look like in the major arcana. They look a little bit like Hebrew letters. They've got these little circles on the ends of them. And for that, they look a little bit like what are known as angel letters. In this case, I think I looked them up and I was trying to research them. And I think they're celestial letters is how they're spoken of. This one is the Aleph. It looks a little bit like an X, but it also looks like an Aleph, more like an Aleph than an X. So the Aleph, which is the number 1 in Hebrew, it has this connotation of the oneness of the divine. And how does that correspond to the Hermit? I'm guessing that it has to do with being able to connect with divinity in order to find the pearls of wisdom in one's self. And the Aleph is the number 1 in Hebrew, in Gematria, and to that end it speaks to oneness of the divine and all things one, the beginning of a thing. So interesting with Nikio here today. This is the first time I've used this deck in a reading, so I'm just discerning how it works. So how does that speak to this tree? Let me listen in for a second. I think what we're going to find here is we'll get some more clarity when we pull out our Hebrunes, and it will all come together. So I'm going to start by pulling out our Hebrunes. We're going to do 3 today, and we're going to start at the top and work our way down. The top Hebrune is that which is happening right now, our current situation. The center is what is our challenge or fear in our situation, and the third is what is the outcome given the current circumstances. So let's see what's at the top. At the top we have the letter Tet. In the center we have the letter Kaf. And at the bottom we have the letter Kuf. Okay. Starting at the top, we have the letter Tet, and what's interesting I'm noticing right away about that is the letter Tet is the number 9 in Gematria. It is the same number as we have here on the Nikio card. So to that end, it also kind of reflects that idea of being a hermit. It's a cup or a vessel of some sort, a basket. Some say it's a womb. And it also has that same similar shape to the shell, which is interesting. So I think that's really significant here for you, that we have something that is telling us it's time to take a moment to go inside. And I say that because the 9 also reflects the 9 months of gestation in the human body. So there's something about something that is cooking, something that it's time to maybe retreat a little bit from the world or the din of humanity in order to sit with yourself, to discover what is good. Tet is the first letter of the word Tov, which means goodness. And so to that end, it speaks to the goodness inside. And I think about that pearl, that we have maybe this irritation that's happening, but while we're gestating, while we're taking the time to be within ourselves, that pearl is creating itself. We're being able to take the irritation and turn it into something gorgeous and beautiful. What's really interesting in this particular Tet is the center piece of this piece of wood shines out white like a pearl as well. So that's fascinating to me. It's really interesting. So we have the Tet, which is saying to us it's time to gestate. Something is gestating right now. That there is this period of creating something good within. Tet is the letter that corresponds to the month of Av. So Tu B'Av is happening. We're in the middle of the month of Av. And again, like that pearl, it looks a little bit like the full moon up there in the sky. So here we are with the Tet representing Tov, representing good, representing Tu B'Av, the full moon of Av, that idea of pregnancy, the fullness of the moon, the fullness of a pregnancy. Something is coming. And it speaks to also renewal. The number 9 reflects the idea of the shofar blasts that happen in the month of Elul and during the Rosh Hashanah services, which is that new year transformation that happens. So 9 blasts that happen in sets of 9 within the services talk about the renewal of the year, something that is transforming, some kind of return that is happening. So it reflects that is coming in just a little while. In a month and a half we'll have Rosh Hashanah, and so it speaks to this idea of renewal. Some say also that the Tet is a snake. It's coiled up like a snake. And the snake is an animal that sheds its skin. So there's some more renewal imagery here that's coming through. Something is happening, some kind of gestation period, some kind of hermitage, like you're taking some time to sit with what is irritating and transforming it into that pearl so that we can have goodness, so that we can have the fullness of the moon. And I love that. In my reading of the Hebrunes as they correspond to the tarot card, this corresponds to the Empress because it's about that creativity and the fecundity, the fertility of the Empress, something that is nurturing and gestating something within. So that's what's going on right now, the month of Av, this time of gestation, this time of fullness, of pregnancy, of looking for the goodness within the thing. The letter that shows up in the center of your reading is the letter Kaf. And Kaf is the palm of a hand. It looks a little bit like this. It's about exchange, giving and receiving. And it is the binary transformation of wealth and poverty. It is the first letter of the word koach, so it can have to do with power. Koach meaning power or strength. And it is the first letter of the word keter, which means crown. So it has to do with power and strength. And it's interesting, I see this as the letter that corresponds to the strength card in tarot. The strength card, which is traditionally depicted as someone who is taming someone, a woman in a white dress, which is one of the symbols of Tu B'Av, taming a lion. The lion, which is the symbol of the month of the constellation Leo. And Leo is the season we are in right now, in the month of Av. So the Kaf here in the center of your reading seems to be saying to me that there's a challenge right now or a fear about power dynamics. Are you giving more than you ought to be giving? Are you receiving what you need to receive from others? Is there someone who is oppressing you? That there's some kind of power imbalance or power dynamic that is off? Are you being protected appropriately? Kaf can also be seen to be the hand of the Shekhinah being protecting, and perhaps there isn't adequate protection right now, that you need to call on the protection of the Shekhinah in order to help you right now. The Kaf is the letter that rules over the sun in the sky, and we are in the hottest time of the year right now. And so to that end, it speaks to this being overexposed to something that is usually helpful and healing, like the sun, but we're not getting adequate protection in this position, in this difficult position of the challenge or the fear. That maybe that isn't even true, but you're afraid of it. That there's some fear that there is a imbalance in giving and receiving, that there's not adequate protection, you're not putting up adequate boundaries for yourself in your situation. Maybe you need to run under a tree, run under the tree of the Shekhinah to protect you from the sun right now. And since this does have to do with strength, are you asserting your own strength appropriately? Are you able to use your hands to close the mouth of that lion in that strength card? That we are in the month of Leo right now, and that Leo energy can be very, very powerful, but you need to tame the beast. That's one of your jobs here, is to use your hand to tame the beast, to close the mouth of the lion. It's really interesting. And in the final position, we have the letter Kuf. Kuf is the letter that means monkey. It's the first letter of the word kof, which means monkey. You can see it has a little monkey tail there at the bottom of there. And it's also the first letter of the word kodesh, or kadosh, which means holiness or sacredness, that which is designated for divine service. So we have this conflict, I would say, or contradiction, seeming contradiction in the Kuf, that is about holiness, but it's also about monkey business. And I love that about Kuf. I love that it is both those things. It is the number 100 in Gematria, and so it speaks to 10 times 10, which is the first letter of the divine name. Yud is 10, and Aleph, which is 1 times 10. Aleph is 1, and we have the Aleph on the card here. So we have oneness and tenness, which is again that divine name, and then that brings us to 10 times 10, holiness or sacredness, and the idea of monkeyness as well. So there's animal nature here. There's animal nature in terms of the Leo, the lion, in the Tet, in terms of Kuf, and the Kaf and the strength card having that lion on it. And here we are with the Kuf at the bottom saying there's animal nature here. And how do we balance that? I think that's what the Kuf says to me frequently, is that we have the ability to take the idea of our animal nature, that which is wild and untamed, and also designate it for divine service. If we spend time in contemplation, if we can go into our hermit attitude of taking the time to really sit with ourselves, we can find a way to balance those things, that the animal in us is also holy, that we also have that divinity within us, even though we are animals by nature. And in my correspondence to the tarot cards, Kuf corresponds to the magician. So it speaks to that idea of taking all the tools available to us, the resourcefulness, and taming them so that we have the ability to make the magic in the world, that we can create our wand out of the tree branches that have been given to us. So this is a beautiful reading for this time, for this Tu B'Av. You have this gestation. We have something that is time to sit with and contemplate, maybe find our place in nature under a tree where we can sit with the Shekhinah, that divine feminine within the Asherah, within the tree. That if we are concerned about an imbalance of power, that we need to reach back up and call on the divine feminine to shelter us, that we can go under that tree and protect ourselves from the sun that is shining too brightly right now in the sky. And when we do that, we'll bring ourselves to sacredness. We'll bring ourselves to that balance between animal nature and the sacred divine, that all of divinity exists within the earth, in the trees, in each animal, and that we can find the pearls of wisdom in our time right now as we move into the fields, as we go out underneath the full moon and dance, and through that we will find our love, our divine love, our love for ourselves, our way to protect ourselves in the fullness of the moon. So for those of you who chose the Asherah, the tree of life, this has been your reading. I hope you have a beautiful Tu B'Av. I hope you were able to get outside under the moon, under the trees, and really, really dance. And I will see you here next time.